Hi developers, so let's continue learning Kubernetes, and in this video we will discuss why we need daemon sets in Kubernetes. So let's assume that here we have a Kubernetes cluster with a few worker nodes. Let's say for example that we have a cluster with 3 worker nodes. So this is our Kubernetes cluster, and here we have 3 worker nodes. So this is the first node, this is the second one, and this is the third node. Okay, so here we have a Kubernetes cluster with the 3 worker nodes. Okay, and let's say that here we want to deploy an application on each worker node. Okay, the purpose of this app is for monitoring the node. Okay, so here we want to deploy this application on each worker node, and the purpose of that is for monitoring the node. Okay, so here we have a requirement is to make sure that each node run an instance of this app. Okay, so here we want to make sure that each worker node run an instance of this app. Okay, so here we want to have a copy of this app on each worker node. So on the first node we have an instance of the app running here, the same for the second one, and the same thing for the third worker node. Okay, so here we want each node to run an instance of this app, and the purpose of this app is for monitoring the worker node. We have another thing that we want to achieve here. So here we want to make sure that if a new node is added to the cluster, an instance of this app is deployed on this node. Okay, so here we have another requirement is to make sure that if a new node here is added to the cluster, so let's say that here we have a new worker node added to the cluster, let's call it node 4. So here is the 4th worker node. We want to make sure that if a new node is added to the cluster, an instance of this app is deployed on this node. Okay, so here we want to make sure that all the worker nodes of our Kubernetes cluster run an instance or a copy of this app. Okay, here we can deploy our application, for example using a deployment object. So here we can deploy our application using deployment in Kubernetes, but the problem here is that we want to achieve these two requirements, and this can be done using the deployment. Okay, with deployment we can make sure that we have, for example, 4 or 5 instances of this app running in the cluster, but we can't make sure that each node runs an instance of the app. Okay, so for example here we can have, for example, 2 instances on the first node, and we didn't have an instance on the second node, okay? Because the deployment object can't make sure that each worker node run an instance of the app, okay? The same for the second requirement. It can be achieved with deployment. So with deployment, we can't make sure that if a new node is added to the cluster, an instance of this app is deployed on this node. And that's why here we have the DaemonSet object. So a DaemonSet is a Kubernetes object that makes sure that each application runs an instance of a specific app, okay? So here with DaemonSet, we can achieve the first requirement, which is running an instance of the app on each node. And also with the DaemonSets, we can achieve the second requirement, which is if a new node is added to the cluster, an instance of the app is deployed on this node, okay? So here with the DaemonSet, let's say that, for example, at the beginning here we have a cluster of 3 worker node. So let's delete this node. Here with a DaemonSet object, we can make sure that each node in the cluster run an instance of this app. And we can also make sure that if a new node is added to the cluster, so let's say that here we have added a new node to the cluster. This is the 4th node. Here the DaemonSet will detect this new node and it will deploy an instance of this app on this node. So the purpose of using DaemonSets in Kubernetes is to make sure that each node runs an instance of a specific app. And if a new node is added to the cluster, the DaemonSet will notice that a new node is added to the Kubernetes cluster and it will create a copy of the app on this node. If you want to delete the applications deployed with a DaemonSet, here you can use the command kubectl delete DaemonSet and then the name of the DaemonSet, okay? So here we have DaemonSet name. And a very important thing that you should know here is that if you delete the pod directly without deleting the DaemonSet, the pods will be recreated by the DaemonSet, okay? So to delete the pods running the application deployed with the DaemonSet object, you have to delete the DaemonSet itself, okay? So I hope that everything is clear and thank you very much.